Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. Buckle up, this one doesn't begin with a romantic backstory. It begins with a voicemail. Hey Emery, I know this is random, but I found something you probably should see. It's about Juniper. Meet me behind the pharmacy on West Pine tonight at 7. Don't bring her. That's it. No name. No explanation. Just static and a deadline. I must have replayed that voicemail 20 times. My hands were clammy. My heart felt like it was trying to punch its way out of my ribs. I didn't know what I was walking into, just that it felt final. 7 o'clock came fast. I drove to that grimy strip mall like I was heading to a funeral. The pharmacy's back lot was empty, just flickering lights and dumpsters. I was about to leave when an old rusted sedan rolled up beside me. The window rolled down slowly, and out popped a hand, holding a flash drive. No words. No face. Just a cold exchange, like some spy drop in a bad thriller movie. I didn't ask questions. I just took the drive and drove home like I was holding a live grenade. When I got back, Juniper was already asleep. I didn't dare use my laptop, she checks my browser history. So I plugged it into the old PC in the garage that I hadn't used in years. It whirred to life like a dying animal. And then, the screen went black. A video started playing. No music. No cuts. Just raw footage. Juniper. My wife. Laughing. Sitting in someone's lap. At a party I didn't know about, wearing a dress I never saw her buy. She was in our living room. With at least 6 people I had never met. And one of them. He looked right into the camera and winked. My stomach twisted into knots so tight I could barely breathe. But I watched every second. Every second of her kissing someone else on my couch. Every second of her mocking our wedding photo in the background. And then I saw something worse than the betrayal. Her phone was in her hand. She recorded it herself. She wanted me to find it. I don't remember walking back inside. I don't remember turning off the garage light. All I remember is standing at the foot of our bed and staring at her peaceful, sleeping face like she hadn't just detonated a nuke in my chest. The next morning, she made toast. Like nothing happened. And when I asked her, "Is there something you want to tell me?" she just blinked. Took a bite of toast. Sipped her coffee. And said, "Our marriage is over, Emery." Like she was announcing the weather. No panic. No tears. Not even guilt. She just stood, grabbed her bag, and started heading for the door. I didn't stop her. I didn't cry. I just said, "Okay," and walked the opposite way. But that wasn't the end. Because I had already made a copy of that video. And I wasn't the only one who needed to see it. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I sat at the kitchen table in the dark with the flash drive in front of me like it was some cursed relic. Occasionally, I'd hear her stir upstairs in the bedroom, our bedroom, and every time, I froze, like she could read the guilt off my skin even though she was the one who should have been rotting inside. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to erase it all, toss it in the trash, pretend it never existed. But another part, some bitter, broken part of me, wanted to burn her life to the ground. I didn't even know what that meant yet. But I knew it had to start with sharing the truth. The first person I sent the video to was her sister, Maisie. She and Juniper had a rocky relationship at best. Juniper always acted like Maisie was beneath her, too loud, too emotional, too basic, as she'd call it. But Maisie always liked me. She once told me over Christmas that I was the only reason she tolerated family holidays. So I figured if anyone deserved to see the real Juniper, it was her. I didn't send it with a message. No warning. No explanation. Just the video. 10 minutes later, I got a single reply, "Is this real?" Another, wait, was this at your house? Then, oh my God. Emery. She's a psychopath. That was the start of the avalanche. Maisie didn't keep it to herself. Within an hour, two of Juniper's closest friends, Cleo and Brianna, had texted me. One said she was disgusted, the other apologized for not seeing it sooner. Turns out this party wasn't a one-time thing. It was part of some freedom phase Juniper had been celebrating for nearly 6 months. She'd been telling her inner circle that we were practically separated, and that I was too boring to notice anything. Too boring to notice. I built her a backyard studio when she said she wanted to start painting again. I bought her favorite sourdough from the only bakery that made it right. I planned our anniversary weekend down to the weather forecast. And she called me boring. The bitterness turned into fuel. I made more copies. Uploaded the video to a private cloud, just in case. Every time I doubted myself, I'd remember that wink from the guy in the background, like I was the punchline of some twisted joke. This wasn't just cheating. This was humiliation. But I didn't go public. Not yet. I wasn't after viral revenge. I wanted her to feel it, not just lose face, but lose control. The next morning, she waltzed back into the house like she hadn't ended a marriage with a casual statement and a bite of toast. She said she needed to grab a few more things. I watched her gather books, cosmetics, and a few scarves she hadn't touched in years, like she was shopping in a boutique instead of collecting the remnants of a 14-year relationship. And then she turned to me and said, "I'll come by next week to pick up the rest. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." Harder? I smiled. Of course. That same afternoon, I mailed a manila envelope to her office. It included a printed screenshot of the video's thumbnail, Juniper mid-laugh on a stranger's lap, and a simple note. Looks like someone's been working overtime. No name. No return address. Just that. She worked at a boutique marketing firm with a strict moral code in their employment contract. They prided themselves on representing brands with integrity. The guy she was all over in the video? One of their biggest clients. She didn't know it yet, but her little secret was about to cost her more than a marriage. She always had this confidence about her, this cool, untouchable energy, like she was 2 steps ahead of everyone in the room. She knew how to control a moment, control a mood, even control the way people remembered an event. But what she never understood, what she underestimated, was how much power silence can hold. I didn't rage. I didn't text her long paragraphs begging her to reconsider. I didn't block her. I gave her space. And while she thought I was quietly nursing my wounds, I was slowly removing each pillar of the world she built for herself. It started with her phone. I knew the moment she got the envelope at work because she called me twice in a row. I didn't answer. Then she texted. "What did you do?" "Emery, we said we'd keep this peaceful. You're ruining everything." And then radio silence for about 6 hours. I figured she had meetings, or maybe the office was already in chaos. What I didn't expect was what came next. At 11:42 p.m., I got an email from her personal account. The subject line just said, "Seriously?" The body was a long-winded monologue about how things weren't black and white, how people fall out of love, and how she never intended to hurt me. And then, tucked in the middle of her self-pitying speech was a bomb. "I was planning to tell you eventually, but I've been seeing Damien for almost 7 months. Damien." She named him. Like I was supposed to know who he was. Like we were all adults here, discussing this over wine and nodding politely at the honesty of it all. Damien, the man from the video. Damien, who winked at the camera. Damien, whose company logo was all over Juniper's most recent pitch decks. That wasn't just cheating. That was career suicide. She had to know that. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. Because what she didn't realize was that she had bigger problems than me. The next morning, I got a call from Maisie, her sister. She was frantic. "Emery, have you seen her LinkedIn? Check it. Now." I pulled it up. Gone. Completely wiped. I searched the company's website. Her bio. Deleted. Her name. Scrubbed from the team page. And just a few minutes later, she called me again, this time sobbing. Her voice was cracked and raw. "Why would you do this to me?" I said nothing. "I didn't even cheat in the way you think I did," she spat. "It was emotional at first. We just talked, Anne." "Juniper," I cut her off, "you recorded yourself. You laughed into the camera." She went quiet. For the first time since this all started, she had no words. But I wasn't done. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about truth. About consequences. About pulling every layer of deception off until only the core remained. I knew there were more people who needed to see that video, people who had believed her stories about me. About how I was checked out, controlling, emotionally cold. So I logged into our shared Dropbox account. Yes, she forgot to change the password, and pulled all the photos she had backed up from the past year. Hidden in a folder labeled J-Work Events, I found over 70 images, her and Damien at dinners, hotel lobbies, airport selfies. Sometimes alone, sometimes with a group. Always with their arms around each other like it was a done deal. I even found a reservation confirmation for a couple's spa getaway dated 1 week before she told me our marriage was over. That trip was booked before the conversation. She was never planning to ease into anything. She had it all mapped out. Her exit, her new life, and me, left to unravel in private while she thrived in the glow of her shiny new chapter. So I made a folder. I labeled it Juniper Unfiltered. I added the video. The photos. The reservation. A screenshot of her text calling me boring. And then I sent that folder, anonymously, to every board member listed on her company's website, as well as the HR contact I found buried in a PDF from their annual employee guide. No words. No accusations. Just facts. Time-stamped, dated, undeniable. And then I waited. By the end of the week, Juniper wasn't just out of a job. She was out of options. I'd love to say I felt triumphant watching her world collapse. I didn't. I felt hollow. Like all the screaming I should have done, all the things I should have thrown or broken, just never happened. I didn't get revenge in some fiery, cinematic explosion. I just sat in my cold garage, watching her curated life slowly fold in on itself like a house of cards in a breeze. And that silence. It was louder than anything she ever screamed at me in arguments. The thing is, Juniper wasn't just someone with a job. She was her image. Her career, her appearance, her network, they were her religion. Every dinner party we went to, she was introducing herself to someone, in brand strategy, or content innovation. She collected business cards like some people collect seashells. And Damien? He was more than a fling. He was a stepping stone. A shortcut to prestige. But now, the shortcut had become a dead end. A week after her sudden leave of absence, the news finally trickled out among her friends. I didn't have to say a word. The video and the evidence I had shared did the talking. Maisie told me Juniper had called her in tears, accusing her of betraying her. Maisie didn't deny it. She just told her straight, "You can't lie your way out of this one, Junie." That phone call led to a cascade of blocks. Her friends turned cold. Her name disappeared from a collaborative women in business project she was co-leading. The whispers grew louder. Some of them had been suspicious already. Some knew about Damien but didn't know she was still married to me. Now everyone knew. But nothing hit her harder than what came next. One morning I checked our joint bank account. Yes, we still had one, and saw something strange. A charge for a wire transfer to a legal firm in Portland. Then another to a company that handles apartment leases. Within minutes, my phone lit up. Juniper. I know what you're doing. Stop it now before this gets uglier. You need to be an adult and let me move on. I already told you, it's over. It hit me right then. She wasn't scared of me exposing her. She was scared of losing control of the story. She had always been the narrator. The woman who painted the picture and handed it to others with a charming smile and just the right amount of vulnerability. She wanted to be the brave one who left a toxic marriage. The survivor. The reinvented woman. But now. Now she was just exposed. I replied with one text. You filmed yourself, Juniper. Remember that. She didn't answer. Instead, 2 days later, I got an email from her lawyer. Polite. Dry. My client wishes to resolve this divorce as amicably and swiftly as possible. It included a list of items she wanted: half the house value, her car, a small cash payout for emotional hardship. Emotional hardship? My hands shook. Not from rage, just disbelief. She wanted a payout for this? For setting fire to our marriage with a smile? I forwarded the email to my own attorney, a guy named Neil I'd quietly hired 2 weeks earlier. Neil had already seen the footage. He didn't mince words. I'll handle it. She's bluffing. She doesn't want this in court. And then, just when I thought I'd seen it all, came the voicemail. Not from Juniper. From Damien. Yes, he called me. His voice was nervous, shaky. He introduced himself like we were on a job interview. Emery, I wanted to clear the air. I didn't know you two were still together when things started. I thought she was divorced. I swear, man, I didn't mean for any of this. I hung up. No words. Because that wasn't an apology. That was damage control. Damien wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid of his wife finding out. Oh yeah. He was married, too. I hadn't intended to go digging into Damien's life. But sometimes, information has a way of finding you. One of Juniper's former co-workers, someone who apparently hated her guts, sent me a message. She'd done some snooping and found Damien's personal social media under a different alias. That alias was linked to a private family blog. And there, clear as day, were pictures of him with a woman and 2 young kids, all smiles on a beach trip from just last month. So I made another anonymous folder. This one was addressed to his wife. Sending that folder to Damien's wife wasn't something I planned to do at the beginning. It wasn't some grand revenge scheme. But when I saw the photos of their 2 kids on that blog, smiling with sandy toes and sticky ice cream faces, with no idea what kind of man their father really was, I felt something click inside me. This wasn't about bitterness anymore. It was about the right people finally seeing the full picture. So I found her name through a tagged post, Lacey. She worked at a local nonprofit. I used a secure service to send her a digital package labeled simply, "For Lacey, you deserve to know." It included the same video, the hotel reservation, and a few screenshots of messages I'd pulled from Juniper's cloud backups. She'd been sloppy. One of the texts said, "He's clueless, but Damien makes me feel alive again," smirking face. Another read, "If I play this right, I'll walk away with the house and peace of mind." She sent that one the night before she told me we were over. 2 days passed without a sound. I thought maybe Lacey had ignored it. Maybe she didn't want to know. Maybe denial was easier. Until Sunday morning. It was 7:15 a.m. when the knock came. Not at my door, at Juniper's. I happened to be nearby, finishing up gathering the last of my belongings. I wasn't supposed to be there that early, but I wanted to avoid seeing her face again. Instead, I got a front row seat to chaos. I peeked through the slightly cracked side gate and watched as Lacey, in workout clothes and puffy eyes, stood on the porch holding a manila envelope. Juniper opened the door wearing a robe and that smug, I'm unbothered, look she had perfected. Can I help you? She said with a fake laugh, like she was brushing off a Girl Scout selling cookies. You can give this to your boyfriend, Lacey snapped. He'll know what it means. She tossed the envelope at Juniper's feet. And tell him he can explain to his children why he won't be at the next recital. I froze. Juniper's expression didn't just shift, it fractured. I saw her lips part, then shut again. She didn't know what to say. For the first time, someone had turned the mirror around, and she couldn't look away. Lacey walked off like a woman done being fooled. Head high, not a single tear. I slipped out the back, unseen. Later that night, I received another voicemail, this one from Damien again. I didn't answer, but I listened. You crossed a line, man. This didn't have to get this messy. Do you feel better now? She's hurting, I'm hurting, everyone's hurting. Just, stop. Please. No apology. No ownership. Just whining. It almost sounded like I had betrayed him. I blocked his number. The next 72 hours were a blur of calls from Juniper's lawyer. Apparently, Damien's company dropped his contract. His wife froze their joint accounts. And Juniper? She had the nerve to request a private meeting to talk things through without the lawyers. I agreed. Not because I wanted reconciliation, but because I wanted to see what her definition of talk looked like now that the mask was off. We met at a neutral spot, a sad little cafe with burnt coffee and bad lighting. She showed up in sunglasses like she was hiding from paparazzi. No makeup, just that tired, slightly angry face she wore when things didn't go her way. She sat down and didn't say hello. You've made your point, she started, folding her arms. But we both know this went too far. I blinked slowly. Too far. You filmed yourself cheating on me in our house. That was supposed to be private, she hissed, leaning forward. You had no right to. I had every right to defend myself, I interrupted. You weren't going to tell the truth. You were going to sell a version of it and make me look like the cold, boring husband you couldn't escape from. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. For a second, I swear I saw guilt. Not enough to fix anything. But enough to know it stung. Then she shifted tactics. I lost everything, Emery. My job, my friends, Damien's wife kicked him out. What do you want from me? Blood? No, I said calmly. Just honesty. And peace. And you staying the hell out of my way. She looked down at her hands like she was about to cry, but I knew better. They weren't tears of regret. They were tears of defeat. And I walked away again. No hug. No goodbye. Just the sound of the door chime behind me. But even then, I didn't know that this mess still had another twist coming. One I hadn't expected. One that had been hiding in plain sight, buried in files I hadn't opened, yet. You'd think by that point, after the affair, the lies, the job loss, the humiliation, I'd already uncovered the worst of it. I thought I had dug through every skeleton she had shoved into our metaphorical closet. But it turns out, Juniper hadn't just been dishonest about her feelings, or her relationships, or her future plans. She had been rewriting the story of our entire marriage in the background, one hidden folder at a time. It started with a laptop. Technically, it was my old laptop, one I hadn't used in years. It sat in a drawer beneath some tax papers, mostly forgotten. Juniper had borrowed it from time to time when hers was acting up. I never thought much of it. But while packing up some things to donate, I decided to wipe it before getting rid of it. That's when I found the folder. It was titled Life Plan. It sounded innocent enough, like something from a motivational podcast. But inside were dozens of Word documents, spreadsheets, even a few voice notes. And every single one of them revolved around leaving me. I'm not exaggerating. There were timelines, financial strategies, emotional checklists, email drafts for her announcement post on social media, even therapy session summaries, notes she had taken after pretending to work on our marriage. And the worst part? The file timestamps. They went back years. This wasn't a recent unraveling. This wasn't a spontaneous love affair that changed everything. Juniper had been planning her exit since before our 10th anniversary. She had contingency lists in case I got suspicious. She had talking points written out to make herself the strong, evolving woman, while painting me as the emotionally unavailable husband who never really listened. There was even a bullet point that read, "If things turn ugly, play the mental health card." Like my heartbreak was just another scenario to rehearse. I just sat there, staring at the screen, not knowing whether to laugh, cry, or throw the thing through a window. It was so calculated. So sterile. Not a shred of love or grief, just a project she'd been quietly optimizing in the background while I was ordering our anniversary takeout and fixing the leaky sink. Then I found the most disturbing file of all, a folder titled Alt Options. At first, I thought it was some vague future career brainstorm. But no. It was a list of potential, backup partners. Yes, actual names. With notes. Carter M., ambitious, owns gym chain, might be shallow. Terrence, old friend from college, very funny, financially stable. Damien, intense chemistry, not a long-term bet, but good for transition. I'm not joking. She categorized men like meal prep ideas. I was the Sunday comfort dish she'd gotten bored of. Damien was her Tuesday night indulgence. And the rest? Just in case the menu needed to change. It broke something in me that I didn't know could still be broken. I backed up everything. Every file. Every note. Every whisper of evidence. Not for revenge. Not to humiliate her further. But to protect myself from ever doubting my memory again. Because gaslighting doesn't always sound like, "You're crazy." Sometimes it sounds like, "You're overthinking," or, "You're too sensitive," or, "You just don't get me anymore." And when you hear that enough, you start to believe it. I nearly believed her. But this proved it all. The manipulation. The rewriting of the narrative. The careful dismantling of my self-worth so she could escape looking like the villain. That night, I emailed my lawyer and told him we were changing strategy. No more settlements. No more amicable anything. If she wanted to play games, she'd have to do it under oath. The next morning, Juniper showed up at my door. Not with anger. Not with lawyers. With tears. Big, real, ugly tears. "I'm lost," she whispered. "Everything is falling apart. Damien's gone. My family won't talk to me. I don't know who I am anymore." She asked to come in. And for a moment, I almost let her. But then I saw her bag, the same one she brought when she left the first time. Neatly packed, as if she had already planned for this little emotional pit stop. Just another file in the life plan. I told her no. I told her she needed to find out who she was without me being the floor she walked over to get there. She stood there, stunned. Maybe for the first time in years, she didn't have a line ready. And as she turned to leave, I knew she wasn't just walking away from a house. She was walking away from the only person who ever saw her completely, and still tried to love her anyway. The strange thing about fallout is that people assume it ends with an explosion. That once the walls come crashing down, the drama peaks and it's all downhill from there. But that's a lie. Real destruction isn't loud. It's quiet. It lingers. It clings to your clothes and sinks into the foundation of who you were. And in the days that followed, Juniper standing on my porch, crying like a woman mourning a version of herself she had single-handedly annihilated, that silence came for both of us. She didn't reach out again. No texts. No emails. Nothing. At first, I thought it was over. I assumed that, finally, she'd accepted the consequences of the life she'd so carefully designed behind my back. But of course, that would have been too simple. People like Juniper don't disappear, they recalculate. The silence was just a breath before the next move. The first clue came from a friend of mine, Garrett. We weren't close, more like work acquaintances, but he reached out randomly one night and said, "Hey, I just saw Juniper at that new wine bar downtown. She was with some guy, and I think she was filming." I froze. Filming? Garrett clarified. Yeah. She was sitting with this guy, all dressed up, holding her phone at just the right angle. She kept smiling into the camera and flipping her hair. Honestly, it looked like she was recording one of those, "get ready with me," breakup vlog things. The pit in my stomach returned. She was rebuilding. Not quietly, not with remorse, but publicly. She was reinventing herself on social media. I checked her profiles, ones she once kept mostly private, and there it was, "New beginning sparkles, healing isn't linear, seedling self-love, everything." She had scrubbed every photo of us. Changed her name on some platforms. There were carefully posed pictures of her meditating, biking, reading books with titles like Radical Forgiveness and Uncoupled with Grace. And the captions? They made it sound like she had been the one abandoned. One photo, of her sipping wine under a sun-drenched patio, was captioned, "Sometimes letting go is the kindest thing you can do for yourself, and for the person you once loved." She was rebranding herself from "wife who cheated" to "woman who rose." I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I let it sit there. Let her play her game. Because I knew something she didn't. I wasn't staying still. I had been talking with Neil, my attorney, about the divorce terms. And thanks to the files I found, those meticulous folders where she documented every financial maneuver and mapped out how to milk the divorce, I had leverage. And not just emotional leverage. Legal leverage. We filed a motion to contest her demands. We challenged her claim on the house, citing evidence of premeditated bad faith. We used her own words, screenshots from her life plan, and even her statements to friends that she'd already moved on long before the separation. And when her lawyer received the packet, I got a message through Neil that said simply, "Your client has blindsided mine with documentation that paints a deeply one-sided and misleading narrative." That's when it finally hit her. This wasn't just about losing face with her friends, or losing a job, or even losing Damien. This was about losing control. The empire of smoke and mirrors she had built was crumbling, and this time, I wasn't standing in the rubble with open arms. Then came the final twist. It was late. I couldn't sleep. I was scrolling through old emails when I noticed a strange message from almost a year ago, buried in my spam folder. It was from a name I didn't recognize, Erica M. With the subject line, "I thought you should know." Inside was a single sentence. "Your wife has been seeing someone she calls D since last spring. I know because I was seeing him too." Attached was a blurry photo of Damien and Juniper standing in a parking lot, mid-embrace. The timestamp was almost a full year before she told me we were falling apart. They had started long before I suspected. Long before the laughter disappeared. Long before the couch video. It had all been a lie for longer than I could even comprehend. I stared at that photo for a long time. Not because it surprised me, but because it confirmed what I had tried so hard to avoid believing. That everything, had been fake. The intimacy. The therapy sessions. The apology letters she once wrote when we had small fights. Even the way she once looked at me across the dinner table, quietly smiling when I talked about building a life together. All of it had been performative. And somehow, I felt peace. Not because it didn't hurt. It still did. But because I knew, finally, that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't weak. I wasn't the boring, checked out, oblivious husband she tried to make me believe I was. I was a loyal man who got used. Gaslit. And tossed aside when she found a shinier version of her future. But I wasn't the one lying awake every night, crafting a new mask to wear online. That was her burden now. Closure didn't come the way I thought it would. It didn't arrive wrapped in poetic justice or some grand public downfall. It wasn't her crying on her knees or begging for forgiveness. And it definitely wasn't some dramatic twist where she realized everything she lost and tried to win me back. Closure came in the form of a quiet morning. I woke up, brewed a fresh cup of coffee in my kitchen, in my new place, where every detail reflected me. The furniture wasn't hers. The photos on the wall weren't curated for Instagram. There was no echo of her perfume or her passive-aggressive sighs in the hallway. It was just peace. And in that silence, I realized something. She didn't take anything from me. She left. And what she left behind was a version of me that was smaller, muted, afraid to speak up, afraid to rock the boat. But the man sitting here now? He's not afraid anymore. He's not broken. He's free. After everything, after the affair, the deception, the lies, the years of being gaslit, I found something I never expected to find again, myself. I've started hiking again. Something I gave up years ago because Juniper hated bugs. I've reconnected with my brother, who I'd grown distant from because she always called him too chaotic. I've even started writing, something creative, something personal. Just for me. I'm not angry anymore. Not at her. Not at Damien. Not even at myself. Because sometimes, the best revenge, is no revenge at all. Just living better. She may never fully understand what she did. She may go on pretending she's the one who had to escape. That's fine. Let her. People like her need the audience more than they need the truth. But I've got something better than applause. I've got peace. And if there's one thing I'd say to anyone going through something like this, don't waste your time trying to convince someone to value you. Don't shrink yourself hoping they'll notice what they're losing. Just walk. Quietly, firmly. Let them feel your absence, not your anger. Because sometimes, the loudest thing you can do, is leave the silence behind. Thank you for listening to my story. And now I'd love to hear from you. Was there a moment in this story that reminded you of something from your own life? A moment you stayed silent, or a moment you finally walked away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more real stories, real emotions, and the truth people are too afraid to say out loud. Until next time, take care of yourselves. You deserve peace too.